Hi, welcome to this session. We are privileged, excited here to have Citi as a sponsor for the Climate Bonds Conference. And we're going to talk for a little bit now to Val Smith, who's Chief Sustainability Officer for Citi globally, about the work they're doing and how they're seeing what goes on. And of course, I want to grill her on what's really going on. Val, look, you're in an extraordinary position because you've got a new CEO that came in earlier this year and made a speech that I can only describe as electrifying markets in terms of its ambition and its comments about climate change and the need to transition. It was very exciting. But what does this mean practically? I mean, has anyone changed? Everyone just still going into work, usually in their kitchen nowadays because of COVID, but whatever, still going to work and doing the normal stuff, or are things actually changing in the bank? Tell us the story.
Yeah, I think, the story behind Jane Fraser's announcement on her first day as CEO, which was that Citi would be net zero emissions by 2050, and we're also committing to net zero operations by 2030, is that there was a lot of hard work and discussion and debate, frankly, that went into that decision and that big announcement prior. And there's a lot of hard work that's happened since then. So as we were going into Jane's first day as CEO and talking about this commitment, and she made the decision to make this part of her day one announcement and priorities.
Day one. So this was her day one announcement as CEO, and we knew that this was going to be a pretty monumental change for Citi. We knew it was going to also necessitate a monumental change for our clients. I think going in, Jane talked a lot about the need both for ambition, but also for rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work of helping our clients to transition and thus transitioning our own business. Since that announcement, and I can get into more detail, but we have formed a net zero task force that pulls seniors from across the company into like a net zero community, if you will, that is learning and understanding how to execute on this commitment. I think it's fair to say that as much as we understood going into this, the sort of intensity of the work and the technical challenge of establishing your net zero plan and then of helping your clients to begin to understand how they're going to transition and what proof points we're going to ask for along the way. The technical challenge is real. So it's been pretty exciting to sort of dive into those details, but it has also required and will continue to require an incredible amount of capacity building as this flows through our bank and as our clients are also taking up the mantle. And to what extent have the clients taken up the mantle? Has been the reaction amongst your huge client base?
Well, I think we had some clients that were already ahead of us. And obviously there was a fair amount of analysis of where our clients already were before we made this commitment. So some clients are ahead of us and we have been learning from them. For example, on the topic of climate scenarios and what scenarios are out there, how some of our clients in the energy sector, for example, have been doing climate scenario analysis for years. Some clients are, I think, in the middle, understanding the level of ambition required perhaps, but still early days in terms of understanding how to execute on that ambition and frankly, understanding the options for business model transition. And I think some of our clients are going to need a lot of support and a lot of capacity building as they begin to understand how to transition. So if you think about Citi's particular global footprint, we're the most global bank in the world, and you think about what that means in terms of our clients in emerging markets, there is a lot of work ahead of us as a community and certainly for Citi to begin to help those banks, begin to help our clients, including some banks, frankly, to understand the metrics required to transition and to begin to think through those opportunities.
I mean, part of this is also how you structure a deal that can work given someone's got a big transition, often a very high capex load, even though capex is relatively low cost nowadays. You've got to make sure the returns are there. And I guess that's your whole business development, business advice, structuring side. There's lots of corners of Citi that must be having to be mobilized now.
Right.
Which means you've got a big internal job, right? Especially as Chief Sustainability Officer.
A
But
big
what does it look
internal
like?
job. I mean, I have to say, like, our bankers are definitely up to the challenge. And if you look at how really, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the green bond space, which Sean, you and your organization pioneered and continue to pioneer, that really was the big shift in terms of looking at sustainable finance as a whole and looking at those products.
Right.
So I think as we think about our clients transitioning, there's a piece of it that is around getting better metrics. Our clients have to develop better metrics, disclose better metrics. We all have to sort of get better at understanding how to measure our progress in our transition. And then there's a big role for sustainable finance products and for sustainable finance advisory. And, you know, put transition in front of sustainable for transition finance products and transition finance advisory. So the bonds market is really what pioneered that, right? Because now, as you see, as you look across, for example, all of Citi's different businesses, from, you know, debt to equity capital markets to our trade finance team, they are all looking at how we sort of put an ESG or sustainable or transition lens on like every product out there that we offer to clients. I don't think that's a huge exaggeration to say, you know, and when you think about the opportunity, you put up the guardrails, right? Defining, for example, as, you know, as CBI did, defining what's green in the bond market. You put up those guardrails, and then the ability to sort of innovate and execute within that, I think, is pretty incredible. And so that's what we're seeing inside Citi, that integration and flow of, you know, information around what's possible through to client products. Take that, marry it up with the bespoke, like one-on-one advisory to get that transformation to happen. And that's how I think it's going to evolve.
Val, you have made my day. This is so exciting. I mean, I know it's hard work. I appreciate there's a lot of work, but just the fact that you're telling me that it's going across multiple areas of the business is like what we want to see for those of us in the climate activists needing to address climate change and address the risks of climate change. It is just music to my ears. And I want to actually phone up the Fed now and tell them about this because, of course, they're looking at climate risk, as central banks around the world need to be looking at. But you said something very interesting, at least to our audience, which is about green bonds being a bit of a kicker for this whole work. And just explain what you mean a bit more about that, because I want to drive the message home to everyone.
Okay. Absolutely. And I will just say that I'm not saying this because this is the opening of the Climate Bonds Conference.
Thank you for that.
I think we make this point often, which is you know, as you look back, Sean, at, you know, pre-green bond principles, right? Your organization was beginning to develop the framework for a whole host of different sustainable bond opportunities across industries. But what we realized is that what the market needed is some definitioning and some guardrails. And I think the green bond principles helped to provide that. And helped to get us used to thinking about financial products, not just as plain vanilla financial products, but as products where you could put like the green on top of, the social on top of, and, you know, increasingly the integrated ESG on top of. So we've just taken that model through the financial system. I think we're not done. I think there's a lot more work to do in terms of really tightening up, you know, how are we defining green, how are we defining transition, and so on. But that framework, I think, is what we are taking to the KPI linked, you know, loan model, for example, taking through our trade finance, sustainable supply chain finance, like that sort of ethic of looking at, you know, putting the green lens on different products, I think began with CBI as well as the green bond principles.
and by the way, full credit needs to be given to Mike Eckhart, who used to be at Citi before he retired, who was one of the drivers of the green bond principles. But the interesting thing is, essentially, we got some basic deal flow going. That's created business lines, and what some of my friends in banking are saying is this is proven to management that there really is a business line, an investor appetite here, which has then opened up the doors to be able to do more. Is that how it worked in Citi?
That is how it's worked in Citi. And I think for Citi, yes, like there's an element of the risk piece in here, you know, understanding climate risk, understanding different types of sustainability risk, and the challenges that presents to Citi and to our clients. But I think opportunity is naturally sort of a longer term motivator for human beings, including bankers. And
absolutely right.
And so what we've done at Citi is begin to sort of reorganize our business units to be positioned for the opportunity. I've been at Citi for 17 years, always in the sustainability function here. And the amount of change we've seen in the last 3 years is like kind of awesome. You know, we have just to give you a couple of examples, about a year ago during the peak of COVID, we established a sustainability and corporate transitions team within our banking group to look at all kinds of transition and, you know, play that advisory role to our clients as they seek to, you know, ratchet up their ESG performance. This year, we reorganized our business groups, focusing on the energy,
dans le
power, and
domaine de
chemical
SG.
businesses
Et
into a
cette année, nous avons
supranational natural
réorganisé
resources and clean energy
et dans
transition team. These
le
are
domaine de
like
l'énergie et des
obviously
produits chimiques et
interesting
nous avons
business
également
names
créé un groupe
for, you
de
know, banking
transition.
teams. But I think more than that, it signals,
Cela
first of all, how we
fonctionne
see
dans le
the
cas du système
transition
bancaire,
opportunity as
mais
being
envoie
very
un signe
simplistic.
très
If
clair
you look
vers
at
le
different
marché,
ways that our
comment
clients
nous
are
nous
planning to
envisageons
transition their
toutes
business
ces
models,
possibilités.
and it
Et
requires
nous
a
voulons donc
completely
aider
different
notre client
mindset
dans
on the
la
part of our
mesure où
bankers.
ils ont
And,
l'intention
you know, just to
de
get back to this
transformer ces
framing
modèles
piece, it
d'affaires. Cela
requires
change
a
la
different kind
mentalité.
of
Donc, on reprend,
capacity building.
pour
And
reprendre
so when we look
la,
at, for
la
example,
formation,
our
nous avons besoin d'un
partners
autre type
in
de
our
formation.
net zero
Lorsque je
journey,
pense, par
it's
exemple,
not just the
de quelle
ESG
façon
teams in Citi, you know, that we have embedded in
à
different
nos,
businesses.
à nos
It is
partenaires
also those traditional banking
de
teams that are right
Ligue de
there with
Zero,
us,
mais
doing the
ce n'est
hard
pas tout
work
simplement
of,
car
you know, figuring out where our
ce qu'ils
clients are
font, ce sont
today and
d'autres
figuring out where
activités.
we need to help them to
Mais
get to.
également,
And
les
I guess that's the
traditionnels qui
point, isn't
travaillent
it?
dans
It's
le
addressing
domaine
the challenges,
bancaire, nous
addressing the
pensons
risks, and
également comment nous
basically taking
pouvons
advantage of
les
the
aider dans
opportunities
ce
that are opening
sens-là.
up.
Il est important
This
à penser
transition,
aux
you mentioned
risques,
transition a
aux
few
enjeux,
times, and
aussi de
obviously there's a lot
bénéficier
of
de ces
hype out
nouvelles
there. As you know, one of the
opportunités.
themes this conference
Et
is about
sans
taking
aucun
high
doute,
carbon
comme vous le savez
companies
probablement
to the
déjà,
kind of place they've got to be in this transition.
cela
How much are you getting reception from the high
concerne
carbon
également faire
sectors of the
les
market,
transitions
which is
vers
generally
une
a challenge that they're
économie,
tough to figure out what they should
par
be doing.
exemple dans
Is it positive? Is it
les
mainstream budget
secteurs où il y a
happening now,
une
or is
forte
it still being
émission de
built
carbone,
to be
nous devons
decided?
voir comment
The
les
engagement
inclure
is
dans cette
definitely
transition. Vous
happening
pensez que
now,
nous avons
and
encore
there is
beaucoup à
quite a
faire
bit
dans ce
of work to be
domaine-là?
done.
Oui, sans aucun
Those
doute,
things are
cela se
true.
produit en ce moment,
You
mais il y a
know,
encore beaucoup à
I've
faire.
been impressed with the receptivity and the understanding of our
J'ai
clients
été vraiment très
within the
interpellé
hardest to
par
transition
la
sectors.
réceptivité
And
et
it's
la
opened up,
compréhension de nos clients,
I'm
notamment
not going
en
to
ce
pretend that
qui
it's opened up
concerne cette
conversations for us to be
phase de
easy,
transition.
but I
Je
think
ne
it's
vais pas
opened up
faire
conversations
semblant
that are
que toutes ces
pretty
conversations sont
open and
faciles, non, pas
authentic,
du tout.
frankly.
Mais en général,
And, you know,
ce
they
genre
go
de
something like
dialogue est
this.
assez ouvert et
You know, and the
assez franc.
conversations are a little bit different
En
with the
général, ce
leaders
qui se
in the
produit,
transition
c'est
space,
que cela dépend
versus
beaucoup
the
si
companies that
nous
are still,
dialoguons
you know,
avec
getting organized
les
and understanding
leaders
what their transition
ou avec
possibilities are.
les
But
équipes
first of
ou
all, you
même
know,
avec
in
les équipes qui essayent de comprendre ce que veut dire la
in every time
transition.
of
Les
change,
sociétés également
clear
sont en train
communication and
de,
setting expectations
de
is
comprendre
super
ce qu'est
important.
cette transition. Mais
And
il est
that's what
important
we found with this
de
time of change
tenir
as well.
compte
So
que la communication doit être
our
très
net zero
claire et
conference
aussi
on March
de
1st in New York
gérer
City
Cela, c'est en général la feuille de route de ces conversations. Et ensuite, nous affirmons que la situation actuelle mène les gens à comprendre ce qu'elles peuvent faire et de quelle façon est-il possible de changer le type de financement qu'ont nos sociétés à l'heure actuelle. Il est important aussi de comprendre ce que vous, en tant que client, vont nous demander. Moi, j'estime qu'il s'agit d'une situation dans le secteur financier qui a toujours eu ce genre de rapport avec les clients et ce n'est pas toujours facile de voir ces communications ouvertes avec les clients. Il est toujours important d'avoir quelque chose de plus à offrir pour avoir affaire avec les situations les plus difficiles. Cependant, cette question d'aider les clients vis-à-vis de la transition est un point très important. Cependant, ce que nous communiquons à nos clients est exactement cela. Nous sommes ici pour travailler main dans la main avec vous et la réponse des clients en général est oui, nous sommes prêts, nous voulons entendre ce que vous avez à nous offrir, mais je ne vais pas vous dire que toutes les conversations avec les clients fonctionnent aussi bien que cela, mais je suis vraiment très interpellé par le fait que les clients nous disent oui, dites-nous ce que vous faites et nous allons essayer de nous y adapter. Je pense que notre session aujourd'hui, nous allons parler sur la formation et vous avez dit 2 ou 3 fois, vous avez mentionné la formation, comment nous pouvons nous en bénéficier de ces nouvelles opportunités. À vrai dire, il s'agit d'une histoire qui est très excitante. Nous allons avoir une session sur la transition vendredi, mais avant, John Monton va nous parler des opportunités également. Et cela, à vrai dire, moi, je suis vraiment très, très excité vis-à-vis de de ce programme. Et nous devons voir comment nous pouvons générer des retours durables. En ce moment, moi, je pourrais continuer à bavarder avec vous pendant des heures, mais nous devons clore cette conversation. On pourrait peut-être continuer plus tard, mais de sorte à clore, je voudrais savoir quels sont le dernier message que vous passerez pour les gens qui commencent maintenant ce parcours. Je voudrais tout d'abord mettre l'accent sur le fait qu'il ne s'agit pas de rester à la traîne. Moi, j'aime courir et ce que je fais, par exemple, quand je me prépare pour un marathon, quand on pense par exemple aux Jeux olympiques, au marathon, c'est vraiment quelque chose de très intéressant et qui nous surexcite. Mais il faut penser à toute la résilience qui est nécessaire pour y parvenir. Ainsi, ce que nous voyons en ce moment, c'est le marathon de nos vies. Ce que je voudrais transmettre aux personnes, c'est que le marathon, c'est l'ambition. Mais avant de pouvoir accomplir et de pouvoir atteindre cette ambition, il y a beaucoup de travail pénible et de formation, et ce n'est pas quelque chose puisse faire seul. C'est une formation qui doit être faite ensemble, comprendre les besoins. Cela fait partie de notre travail dans le secteur financier et également quels sont les produits financiers qui sont disponibles. Et en plus, je voudrais suggérer à mes collègues et de leur dire qu'il y a beaucoup d'apprentissages disponibles sur le marché. Il y a des forums de discussion, de débat et de formation concernant cela. Il est important que nous nous y bénéficions et que nos clients devraient peut-être exiger cela de nous. Et aussi en ce qui concerne la formation. Autrement dit, la formation est attrayante, est intéressante et le résultat également mais nous devons nous consacrer à la formation en ce moment et à la, à la préparation. Cela est également quelque chose qui est intéressant. Et nous devons donc profiter de ces occasions de formation ainsi que celles de transition qui existent déjà. Et nous devons travailler ensemble de sorte à accélérer. Je suis vraiment très heureux d'entendre ce que vous nous dites. Et, et il y a 5 ans, on ne pourrait pas pu avoir cette conversation ensemble. Oui, il est intéressant de voir la rapidité par laquelle cela s'est produit, comment cela s'accélère. Mais nous avons encore beaucoup à faire dans ce domaine-là. Et en tenant compte de tous les impacts que nous avons dans le monde d'aujourd'hui, cela est très important. Il est important de dialoguer et également de pouvoir attirer beaucoup plus de personnes de sorte à faire cette transition et de suivre ce parcours avec nous. Cela tient compte aussi de personnes et d'entreprises qui veulent s'engager et accepter ces enjeux et ces défis. Bonne chance. Il faut que vous ayez du succès pour que nous puissions réussir également. Climate Bonds Initiative, nous voulons investir davantage et travailler beaucoup vis-à-vis de cette formation, ce marché dont vous avez parlé. Moi, de plus en plus, nous avons arrivé à 3,3 milliards de dollars en titres sur le marché. Merci beaucoup, Sean. C'est très, très intéressant de parler, de travailler en partenariat avec vous. Merci beaucoup.